Welcome back to the Restaurant Incubator podcast, brought to you by the Industry Standard. My name is Brandon Sharp. I'm your host. I'm a 7-time Michelin star winner as an executive chef. I own and operate 3 restaurants in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Today's interview is with Gary Crunkleton, who owns the Crunkleton in Chapel Hill, who owns the Crunkleton in Charlotte, and the Crunkleton in Raleigh. He is the crown prince of craft cocktails. He brought craft cocktails to the South. He's going to tell you about how he got where he is, where he plans to go. And for all you budding restaurateurs out there, there are a lot of good lessons that Gary relates on a first-hand basis about what to look out for in potential investors, what to look out for in potential partners. And he will also tell you, if you are not a bourbon drinker, the cocktails that he will make for you to convert you into one. Enjoy today's episode of the Restaurant Incubator.
But I was making my own bitters. I was making my own quinine syrup for tonic. And there was no market for all that. I can remember serving a gin and tonic, and it would be brown or amber colored. And the guest would say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I ordered a gin and tonic." Well, that's our tonic. But they either loved it or didn't.
Yeah.
Now they questioned it, but when they see that, they're, "Oh, this doesn't look right." So they're already going in, thinking, "Oh, I'm not going to like this," but I thought it was a better drink.
Yeah.
I thought it was.
Yeah.
But we stopped the quinine because now they'll say, if you look up quinine or cinchona bark or fever tree, whatever, they'll say it can mess up your bowel movement.
Oh, really?
Okay, so we stopped.
Got it.
But before, you didn't know.
No sitting. You didn't know. Anyway. Well, we're here at the pitch at 462 West Franklin Street, steps away and actually on the same block as a legendary bar called the Crunkleton. And we're here with the legend. We're here with the man himself, Gary Crunkleton. So I think that's a great place to start, was with craft cocktails. And tell me how you had the vision for that. You opened the Crunkleton in 2008.
Yeah.
And, now it's a bar that a lot of people will say, I want my bar to be like the Crunkleton. Did you have a template or somebody that you base your bar on, or did it just spring out of your head fully formed?
Now, first of all, thanks for having me, and congratulations with all your successes. Big deal about me. Thank you.
Pleasure's mine. Yeah, I'm glad you're here today. It's an honor.
So a lot of the things that I've done, I don't know if this is going to make sense, but it makes sense to me. A lot of the things that I've done because out of insecurities. I never really thought of myself as someone that could put a bar together or create a place that people would love. Even though I was always a popular bartender and a good bartender and had a really good palate, I never thought that I could be good enough to make a place that would have the popularity like the Crunkleton has. So, what I did was I created a place that I thought people would really, really like, and that was different than what I thought people would think that I would make. So I think if in 2007, someone said, hey, Brandon, what kind of bar do you think Gary's going to make? I think you'd say, he's probably going to do a sports bar with some chicken wings. It's going to be like a nice place for guys to go out and watch a game. Well, I didn't want to do that. I really like antiques and I like art, and I'd like to think that I was kind of civilized in that respect. So I created a place that was full of Mission furniture, 1908 arts and crafts style furniture, and there was an artist named Michael Banks from Alabama that I really liked, and I thought if I ever had enough money, I would buy his art. And I had some money. I had $280,000 to start the Crunkleton. So I had like $10,000 set aside to buy some art. And I put that art on the wall. So it had like this, the furniture is dark oak, Mission style. That's that arts and crafts, that's the characteristic of Mission style. And then the colors were going to be shades of brown, like a mono color. And then this bright art on the wall to give it like a contemporary look. I didn't want it to look like an Applebee's. But so I set the place up to look really, really nice. And I don't think it was characteristic of what people thought I would look like, or a place I would create.
Right.
And then my buddy Mark Pons, who owns Chevrolet right down the street, he was talking to me about the cool bars in New York that were making drinks with egg whites and these old drinks that your grandparents would drink.
So is this the Death and Company era, or was it before that?
It's before. It's Death and Co. I think is like 2010.
Okay.
But right now, in 2008, there's Audrey Saunders has a bar up there, and Sasha Petrowski has a bar up there, Milk and Honey.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of Audrey's bar, but it's closed down now. I can't believe the name escapes me. But we were all sort of coming in around that same time. Now, Audrey had worked for Dale DeGroff. All this stuff started in the late 90s when Joe Baum, who owned Windows of the World and the Towers, they're gone now. But Joe Baum owned Windows of the World restaurant, and he asked Dale DeGroff to make drinks the way they used to a long time ago, before Prohibition.
Before Prohibition, yeah.
And Dale did that. And it was all these books. He had to use books that the internet wasn't covering it.
Right. Yeah.
So he had to find these libraries. This guy named Greg Bean that owns Cocktail Kingdom. He collected these books. So him and Dale became friends, and Dale would pull these sources and figure out how to make these different tinctures and bitters and different ingredients. And then he single-handedly started the cocktail renaissance. It doesn't make sense that one person could single-handedly do something like that, but Dale did it. Dale DeGroff did it.
So he's like he's at the base of the modern cocktail sort of family tree, huh?
Yeah. So the modern, contemporary. And then Audrey Saunders was working for him. Pegu Club. That's what Audrey owned. Pegu Club. So the cocktail renaissance has taken off. Mark Pons is talking. He lived in New York, so he's talking to me about the drinks that are being made in New York. And at that time, they're being made in New York, San Francisco, Seattle, and Portland, and Chicago. But they're not in the South. There's not in the South at all. Now, there's a guy named Greg Best in Atlanta who is he owns a hamburger joint, and he's making some drinks. Can't remember the name of that place, but now he has Ticonderoga Club in Atlanta, which does really well. But Greg was doing some stuff in Atlanta, but there wasn't a bar in the South whose everything was just about classic cocktails.
Right.
So that's what I wanted to do, and that's what I did. I don't know. I think my ego is kind of odd. On the one hand, I have this ego that wants to climb Mount Everest. And then on the other hand, I've got this shame that doesn't think highly of himself. So there's like a constant, there's a battle. And in my head, I'm thinking, am I worthy? Am I not? All these different things. Like I was probably too insecure at the time, maybe even still now, to drive a convertible. I remember I had my friend Joe Bailey's convertible Saab. He let me use it, and I never took the top down because I thought, oh no, people are going to see me, and I didn't feel like I had the self-esteem to do it. I know we're not talking about the subject.
No.
But anyway, so we started the bar, and we're doing egg whites and all these different mixers that we use, and they're not being made at the time. I was talking about earlier about making my own bitters. At the time, they were Angostura, Peychaud's, and Fee Brothers. And the Fee Brothers, you can taste the bitters just like you would taste spirits. You can do the Pepsi Challenge to bitters.
Sure.
And some of them are good and some of them aren't. And you just sort of know. You don't have to figure out, why they aren't good or why they are good. You just sort of know. You can taste it and tell. And the Ango was good, and the Peychaud's was good, but the Fee Brothers wasn't that good. So I would make my own bitters, because that's what I wanted to do. Everything had to be craft, bespoke or custom made. So that's what I did, and then I would make my own ginger syrups and my own quinine syrup, and just make it all happen. And then, fortunately, I had some
I made some relationships. I built relationships with North Carolina ABC, and I was able to get some spirits in. I remember a lot of these old spirits that are called for, like chartreuse and Luxardo, maraschino liqueur.
Mm-hmm.
Those weren't in the state,
Right.
so you had to get them.
Yeah.
And it's easy to get in a control state. People don't, they badmouth the control state, but you can get whatever spirit you want. There's only been one spirit since 2008. There's only been one spirit that they said no, you couldn't get, and that was this Damiana. That was this Damiana liqueur from Mexico. That's the only spirit that they said no, I can't get it. And I don't know why they said no to that.
Yeah.
But
it sounds like a lot of these, a lot of the concoctions you've come up with, I'm sure a lot of the recipes you've come up with are, self-taught. I'm sure there's a lot of self-education that went along with this. I've sat at your bar and gone through the bourbon tasting experience and learned why this popular bourbon whose cap happens to be dipped in red wax is actually far inferior to some of the others. To some of the others. That's what you say. No. I didn't say any names. I can tell.
Taste it and tell.
I sure could.
Yeah.
But part of my speech to my front of house staff is always, we are not here to educate the guests. We're here to delight the guests. But you seem to have educated an entire generation of drinkers in the South. So where does that balance lie for you?
So when I was younger, I was a big drinker and drank too much. When I was 59 now. I was still at 28, 29. I was still drinking like I was at 21.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all about quantity. Then when I opened my own bar, I wasn't drinking as much, and it was less about quantity and more about quality. And there's this Mississippi state legislature named Soggy Sweat, and it seems like I'm making this up, but I'm not.
That's like a cartoon character.
Yeah, I know. But I guess liquor used to be illegal in Mississippi in the whole state.
Uh-huh.
So they would ask, I don't know if this is the 70s or 80s, I can't remember, but they would ask these politicians, what do you think about abortion, or what do you think about, not in Mississippi, but I'm using this as an example,
Right.
The kind of like questions.
Some wage issues, yeah.
Yeah. So they would ask, what do you think about alcohol? And at the time, from what I learned, most of the politicians would avoid that question. But not Soggy Sweat. Soggy Sweat, there's a speech, you can Google it. And Soggy says, alcohol, if you're asking me about that liquid that loosens the hinges, it makes people celebrate, then I'm all for it. But if you're asking about that spirit that breaks families apart and makes men lose their jobs, then I'm against it. So it was a great speech. For me, it also it's personal. It hits home with me because when I was younger, I was drinking a lot. And now that I'm older, it's about quality. So, and not quantity. So when I was at school after high school, when I went to college after high school, I just wasted my time and just wasted. So here we are in a college town, and I kind of wanted to teach guests how to drink. And it sounds crazy, but yeah, I wanted them to know. And my business model had me selling 2 drinks. I needed just 2 drinks.
Uh-huh.
If you came in, I need you to have 2 drinks. And the drinks are strong enough, these classic drinks. There are lots of alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
So the drinks are strong enough that 2 is really all you need, and just enough to loosen the hinges and make you feel a little bit happier, a little less inhibited.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so fun. It's so fun to see. You see people, as a bartender, you see people come together, and there'll be like 2 women that they haven't seen each other in 20 years. They may have been college roommates, and they'll have a glass of wine, and then they'll have another glass, and they're thinking, they look at their phone, they're thinking, I have so much to do. And I'm like, get one more glass. Right. Have one more. You're friends for 20 years.
Yeah.
Have one more. And it's going to be, you're going to make, like, that list isn't going anywhere.
Right.
Have one more and just enjoy. Not that I want them to drink too much, but just enjoy the moment, because that's what it can do. And it's wonderful. Like that made it really, in that situation when the 2 ladies have another glass, they have a lot of fun. And so that's the good part about it. Now we opened up
And I had to teach, or I had to, not really teach, but I had to create a market.
Mm-hmm.
And with 400 bottles of liquor on the wall, I remember at one point, we had 144 bourbons and 70 something ryes. Now, all the ryes were made in one place in Indiana, but guests don't know that. But they're all the different labels.
Mm-hmm.
So, how do you move those things? Well, people that grew up drinking Jack Daniels, they're going to drink Jack Daniels. They have Jack Daniels tattoo.
Right.
And people that grew up drinking Crown Royal, they're going to drink the Crown Royal. Now, bourbon's not very popular in 2008, so I could source a lot of it, just like I sourced the Luxardo and Chartreuse and all that. So I can get all those things in and fill the wall up, but you got to move it.
Right.
So I had to teach the guests.
Mm-hmm.
Now, back then, Pappy Van Winkle was really, really popular. Well, not back then. This is probably 2012. Pappy Van Winkle was really popular. And people wanted to get it because you couldn't get it. I had cases of it.
Mm-hmm.
12 bottle cases. This is back when they were in 12 bottle. Now they're in 6.
Mm-hmm.
Some are in 3. And Julian Van Winkle, the owner, he's been to the bar a few times, and he would come and do tastings for us. And so I had to teach the market. Now, I would do those Pappy tastings, and it was really about just money. If you could afford, I remember the first one. This is going to sound bad, Brandon.
But no.
I remember the first one. We had 70-something people in there.
This is with Julian at the bar.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We had 70-something people in there. And it was all these, I can't remember the price of the tickets, but it made money. And it was all these people that could afford to pay, for the bourbon. They didn't know anything about it. They just knew it was happening.
Name recognition, brand recognition.
Yeah. They just knew. So that's why they were there. And then it's as if they got to put a feather in their cap. So I had Pappy Van Winkle. Now none of them learned anything about bourbon. It was just like a little get together because Julian was there, and the book that his sister wrote was there. Everybody got a copy of the book. Julian signed it, so it was great. It was a good event. But for me, I felt like it was a little too shallow. Like I wanted to go deeper, and I wanted guests to really learn about bourbons.
Mm-hmm.
Because with all those on the wall, 144 bourbons on the wall, the smarter my guests are, the smarter the market is.
Mm-hmm.
The more money
move them.
The more. Yeah, they're going to be able to discern.
Yeah.
Here's that.
Those 10 different labels of Weller that you have, they're going to know the difference. Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, the smarter the guests are, the more money I'll make. So that was the business part of it.
When it comes to your bartenders, legend around town has that you train every single one of those. Is that true?
Yeah, that's true. Not anymore. That stopped in 2015. I had the same crew. I opened in 2008, give or take 1 or 2 people additions, but I had the same crew from 2008 to 2014, the same crew. And I taught them all how to do it. It was different back then. I don't know how you were, but I know Scott Howell at Nana's, Jeff, you could hear him yelling. If you're out having in the dining room, you could hear him. And I remember sitting there going, and I would just cringe. Oh, Scott, poor Scott. I think that he was mad because he was a friend. And I think that he got mad. I used to yell a lot too, but you can't do that anymore.
Right.
Did you yell?
Not much.
You never yell.
Not never. Every time, it seems like every conversation I have these days, somebody reminds me of sometime that he yelled or kicked the trash can or something. I'm like, I believe you, but I don't remember that.
You can't yell now. But, now you can't yell. But I would train and I would yell. And I remember there was a person I was yelling at, and they started crying. And I thought, why are you crying? I'm teaching you. I'm thinking to myself, why are you crying? I'm teaching you how to have this craft. I'm teaching you how to do this. You're going to be better because of this. And they said, because you're yelling. And I thought to myself, so I got to get a whole new approach, because I can teach you. I'm supposed to teach you. I want to teach you. I want you to learn. But then I have to present it in a way that I'm not yelling. And I remember thinking, I can't do that. I'm not good enough to do that. I'm not smart enough to do that. I only know this one way, which is yelling. But you have to, because they shrink right in front of you when you're yelling at them.
Yeah, to watch somebody shut down is.
Yeah, they shut down. And it's not nice. It's not it's not Christian. Like
Right.
to me, it's not holy.
No, and ultimately, back to your point about making money, in the long term, I have not found it to be productive. I don't seem to get the return on my investment through yelling as I do through, constant gentle pressure and healthy coaching and things like that.
Yeah,
Of course, I'm the product of yelling. You probably are too.
Yeah, I'm the product of yelling.
So
yeah,
no, maybe it takes all kinds.
It seems like we were. It was a lot better, but yeah, and you can't yell. But we had the same staff, and we knocked it out, and we I have to remember the first 9 months of opening, and our ginger would be brown. I mean, our ginger syrup would be brown, and they're used to it. They'd give me a George Dickel ginger, and or whiskey and ginger or something. It would be kind of cloudy and like, what is this? And like, this is our ginger syrup. And it was better. It was a better product.
Right, but they wanted Canada Dry.
They wanted. Yeah. And now when I opened the place, I think this is interesting. When I opened the place, I'd been in Chapel Hill since 92. I got out of the Navy and then came here. And I was working at a bar. A friend of mine owned a bar, and I was working there. And so I was bartending and stuff. And I had seen breweries open, and I thought, there's no way they're going to sell more pints of IPA than there are than Budweiser's,
Right.
And I remember bottled water. I remember water being put in bottles and people paying $2 for them. And I thought, there's no way people are going to pay for water. You can get it free.
Get out of the tap, yeah.
And I remember Cafe Trios, the coffee shop from California. It moved in, and I thought, this is crazy. Like, people are going to pay $6 for a cup of coffee. And then, here we are now. There's a lot of coffee shops, and everyone's bottled water.
Right.
And Budweiser's, those bottled beers are losing. Long necks are losing their place in the market. So I saw those things happen. Now, I don't remember what year it was, but maybe 2010, 2011 or 12, maybe. We had Chapel Hill within a 2-block area. We had 3 James Beard semifinalists: Bon Soiree, The Lantern, Crook's Corner, maybe 4, Danny Lane's. So that told me that the market here want better. The farm to table movement was starting, and people had discerning palates. So I thought, well, my place is going to have the quality ingredients, like real ginger, like our own quinine and our own bitters. The product's going to be better. So there's a market for that. So I stuck with it, and it probably took about 9 months for people to realize that, it's a better product. Now, at that time, I think here's something that I did that, I don't know if I'm answering your question, but here's something that I did that a lot of places didn't do, because I was consulting. At the time, it was a new thing. So people would hire me to consult, which consulting was so easy. It was easy money to do. And so I would go to a place, South Carolina or Georgia or Tennessee, and set a business up, or even North Carolina, set a business up. Now, at the time, the glasses are big, like supersize me. McDonald's supersize me was happening. So a martini glass would be 10 ounces, 12 ounces.
Right.
Maybe 14. I don't remember, but they were really, really big. So you can get a martini, or drinking a martini glass for $8, and it would be 12 ounces, 14 ounces. Now, these classic cocktails that I was doing, they're 6 ounces at the most, and they're $12.
Yeah.
So you're asking the guest to pay more and get less, but there's all this alcohol, quality ingredients. So, but again, I knew that there was a discerning palates. I knew that the market would accept it or embrace it. I just didn't know how much. So I'm doing these consulting things, and I'm setting places up and getting paid, which is easy money. I don't know if you ever consulted, but it's easy money. It's so easy. And there's no, I shouldn't talk about how easy it is, but
it's all right. No skin in the game. No strings attached.
Yeah. Now, I set my payment plan up so that they had to hit benchmarks for me to get paid. But I think that was a moral thing, because I didn't want, my insecurities didn't want me to think that I scammed somebody.
Hey, y'all, real quick. I hope you're enjoying this episode with Gary Crunkleton. You're going to hear from him about how he failed to plan in several ways when it came to the financial parts of his business. Now, I've set up something called the Restaurant Launchpad for all of you who are interested in the business side of planning your restaurant project. For more, just click on the link in the show notes. Back to the show.
To me, that's the definition of a classic cocktail, when you can taste all the ingredients and they're balanced. So I'm doing these restaurants or bars, and what I did was I stuck with it. Now, a lot of these places didn't stick with it. The market would push back and say, oh, well, why am I, what happened to my martini that was 12 ounces or 10 ounces? Now I've got one that's 6. So they switched. They didn't stick with it. They didn't stick with it. They didn't stay to their guns and stick to their mission.
Right. I went back to serving Cosmos.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now the Cosmos, I don't want to say that I did this a lot, but people in the market, people don't like tequila and they don't like gin. And I think they don't like tequila because they do them in shots and I have a bad experience. And I think gin is similar, except they don't do shots of gin. I think when people get sick, when they drink too much and they get sick, I think the gin does something inside that makes you remember that you had gin when you're getting sick.
And you're reverse drinking it.
Yeah, when you're reversing it. I think they think, oh my God, that was horrible.
Yeah.
I think it just burns differently. So now gin is delicious, as we know,
right,
and our palates want complexity.
Yeah.
Whereas vodka doesn't have anything. So people would order Cosmo, and I don't want to say I did this, but I did it. Although I'm sad. I would put gin in there, and they would, instead of vodka, and they'd say, "Well, this is so good. What is this?" I don't know. It's just I'm making drinks because I'm trying to turn the market,
right?
From vodka to gin
and something more interesting. Yeah,
I remember the first drink we made. I had to get the start of maraschino in first, but the first drink we made was the Aviation, 1920s, 1917. Hugo Insland drink, and because that was similar, the Aviation was similar to the Cosmo. And I thought people would like it. So yeah, that was the first drink. That was the one that we used that launched the cocktail movement in the South.
Nice.
I don't want to say it in the South, but that was the first drink that helped us, get ahead of the curve.
Well, when we're composing the cocktail menu at Hawthorne and Wood, it rotates all the time, and it probably has 8 to 10 custom cocktails on it. And sometimes it will be an Aviation or a Fog Cutter or a classic one like that. But a lot of times, the bartenders and mixologists, they like to come up with their own stuff, and I encourage them to do it.
Yeah.
And the last one, the hardest one for them to do is always the vodka cocktail, because it is the least interesting.
It's the hardest to make. It's the hardest.
Why is that?
Well, whatever you mix it with is what.
Right.
Vodka cranberry, you get cranberry.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
No.
There's a distillery out of Mississippi that makes honeysuckle vodka. And they sent me a bottle and they asked me to make a drink with it. This was years ago. And I couldn't make a drink with it.
Huh.
It was vodka. It was honeysuckle vodka. Couldn't make a drink with it because.
Was it flavorless like vodka, or did it have the aroma?
It had a honeysuckle taste.
Okay.
Which I guess it's synthetic. I don't really know how they made it. I know Bill Smith does honeysuckle sorbet. I know how he does that. He macerates the
blossoms or what?
The blossoms in the water. Yeah. I don't know if they did that in Mississippi for this vodka, but when you're making a drink, you want, like if you're making lasagna and you put red bell pepper, green bell pepper, yellow bell pepper, and they all taste different. They all have a different spice to them. Sweeter, drier, and one greener, like vegetal.
Yeah.
But they're all spicy. If you put those 3 in that lasagna, you don't want to cover it up with cheese and red sauce and not get those flavors. Why use them?
Right.
You're just wasting. And you're going to risk of cutting your fingers to cut those bell peppers off. So why use them? The drinks are the same way. If I'm going to put honeysuckle vodka in a drink, I want to taste the honeysuckle. But I couldn't do it. And I remember, didn't come up with anything because it just bullied it. It bullied the honeysuckle.
So I'm no mixologist. And so when I have a vision for either our dessert menu or our cocktail menu, the best that I can do for our pastry chef or our bartenders is to say, look, what I want and what appeals to me and what I usually order when I go to a restaurant is your best version of one of my favorites. So your best version of banana split or a strawberry shortcake, or your best version of an aviation, a paper plane, or something like that. But with these mixologists, the way that they throw stuff together and pull stuff out of thin air it's like sorcery to me. Do you have a template that you follow, a process that you follow? Do you use flavor associations? Do you use classic combinations, or is it something else when you're composing your own drinks?
For me, I think it's great that you let your staff do that free for all. I think that's wonderful. Well, I do a similar thing where I ask the staff to put drinks in,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't critique them. I taste them,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'll decide. They'll present them. I'll taste them, and then I'll decide what kind of glass it should go in. If it should be on the rocks. Some drinks are really, really delicate,
Mm-hmm.
and when you're drinking them on up, it might call for a coupe.
Sure.
If it's delicate, drink it up. If it's not real delicate, then you can put some, ice in it. If it's super, super, super delicate, maybe we serve it at room temp. We have some drinks that we do that. The colder, when your taste buds are cold,
mm-hmm.
they're not as receptive.
Okay.
And if you're putting these things together, then, get it at its best. Get it when it's without chilled. Like whiskeys, you put rocks on it. Yeah, put it on ice if you want, but
mm-hmm.
but you're gonna know that ice is gonna dilute, one, and two, it's gonna make it cold, so it's not as strong. I remember, I'm sure you've been in groups when we were younger. Somebody would say, "Oh, I'm gonna do some tequila for us," around tequila, and I'm sitting there going, "God, please chill it, please chill it."
Right.
It's easier to get down the hatch,
yeah.
But I think it's great that you let your staff come up with their own drinks. We do that too. It just, you treat them like you'd want to be treated. You get excited when you get something on the menu.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll taste them, and I'll say, this is that, this is this. And I'll try to encourage them not to use a lot of ingredients.
Okay.
To me, you want to, I've had 7, 8 different ingredients. They'll come with that many, and it's kind of overkill at that point.
Yeah.
You don't really need the, orange blossom water, rose water. The orange blossom water will kill a drink. It kills your taste buds.
Okay.
So if you put too much, what you smell versus what you taste is different. And Sardo Mexican liqueur, it kills the taste buds. So you can't do too much of that. And I'll teach them about that, and I'll let them taste. And I was like, see how you can't taste this now because you had too much of that? And so I kind of teach them. All these drinks come from, like a daisy is a liquor and juice, citrus, and an old fashioned liquor and sugar. They all come from these base drinks. Sours. I can't think of all of them.
But they're base templates with ratios that you just build off of those.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the ratios you just sort of know from, like you might say, put some salt in it.
Right. I mean, I know a vinaigrette ratio, a hollandaise ratio, a mayonnaise ratio, a custard ratio.
Well, those are recipes.
Right. Well, but to me, they become recipes. To me, they are ratios.
At first.
Right.
And then when I opened Charlotte, I got in a partnership in Charlotte with some guys that scale, and the plan was to scale to Crunkleton and get like 20 of them and sell it to private equity or venture capital or something like that. And so when we opened in Charlotte, I said, "That's Blake. I don't use recipes." Like, what do you mean? I said, "It's just not as much fun. And your limes might be too tart. You can't say a half ounce of lime.
Or they might not, or half a lime isn't half a lime during one season to the other. Yeah.
Depends. Okay. So I'd rather teach the staff how to taste."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Okay, we can do that. I mean, I want you to do what's made you successful." But he put a guy in my hip pocket just to take notes.
Right.
And
did he have a scale?
Everything had to be
reproducible.
Scalable. Yeah. Everything had to be documented. And I didn't have any like that. And I remember at First Corner, I was involved with Brooks, and the investor there said, "Well, put it in a plan and pitch it, and we'll review it." And I'm thinking, I don't do that. I don't. That's not how I do things. And they said, the investor said, "Well, I've heard you had a lot of success in Charlotte. Certainly, that had a plan. No, it was just what we did. But we put it together. But
what was the spark that took you from Crunkleton, obviously
scale?
drinks only, to a full service restaurant? And to now more than one full service restaurant.
That's right. So I never wanted to do food. When I opened the bar, when I came up with the idea to do bar, I was going to go to law school. I thought I was going to be a lawyer. I'll tell you this story real quickly. So I talked earlier about my low self-esteem and low self-worth and all that kind of stuff. It's not like that anymore, but at the time. And I had all these holes in my heart where I didn't feel, I was trying to plug them with external things. Like I would want to go out with a beautiful woman to make me feel better about myself. Or I would want to be the life of the party to feel like I was popular and people liked me or something like that. Or like this Rolex, I'd put a Rolex on because then people might think, oh, I understand quality or something, whatever, or I'm rich or something. And so I was using these external things to make myself feel better about myself. And one of those things was law school. I thought I'll go to law school and people will think I'm smart. I don't know what I'll do with law school, but that's what I'll do. And so that's what I'm doing. And I'm pursuing law school and I'm bartending because bartending is a great way to make money. And I'm good at it. My palate's really good, and for a bunch of different reasons we can get into if you want. But so I'm pursuing law school. Well, then I meet my wife, my girl Megan. I meet Megan, and she fills all these holes. And she makes me feel better about who I am. And in a way, she helps me love myself. And your grandma might say you can't love someone until you love yourself. Or, how your grandparents give you that advice. And it seems so.
You don't think of it at the time, and you look back on the way they were right. Yeah,
they were right. Yeah. It's like, what does it mean? Yeah, I make love to myself every night. Like, what do you mean love yourself? I don't know what you mean. Anyway, I knew what they meant. Now that after I met Megan. So when I met Megan, there was law school didn't need to happen. And I told her, I don't want to go to law school. I said, I'm not that smart. And I'm a slow reader. It takes me, what you read in a day probably takes me 5 days to read. But I really enjoy bartending. And I like people. I like being around the people. She goes, well, let's do a bar. So that's how we started the bar. At the time, I'm running the liquor bar and I'm thinking it's about margins.
Right.
But I learned it's really about cash flow.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So we would sell even though the margins on food aren't that good.
Right.
They wanted to drive
they wanted the total revenue.
Yeah. Push the cash sales up. And so they said, and for this scaling thing, they said, if we can do at least $2.5 million at 21% or more EBITDA, we're scalable.
Wow.
Yeah. So, that was cool.
Nice.
So the plan was to do a bunch of
And is the Raleigh one step 2 in that same plan, or is that a different group?
No, it's the same group. Chapel Hill's Megan and me. We have it. And the Charlotte group is Charlotte, and then Raleigh, same group. And we might do Greenville next.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Well, go ahead.
So the food component was really just to drive the ticket sales up.
Okay.
And it's all about cash flow. Now, I didn't want to have someone drinking a $60 scotch and then someone sucking on their fingertip from eating chicken wings next to them because it takes that experience away from the whiskey. So we had to do something that kind of matched well with the ambiance. And I had a friend who opened a live fire kitchen up in DC, and I reached out to him and asked him about it. And that's what we decided to do, was live fire.
Okay.
So that was 2018. And so when you walk in, you kind of get wowed by the fire and everything's touching the fire, or you get wowed by the liquor wall. And then hopefully you get wowed by the service and the hospitality. For me, the service is IQ and the hospitality is EQ.
What is EQ?
Emotional quotient.
Okay.
And we
so like your ability your empathy level, okay.
How to talk to the guest, how to show vulnerability. When I was bartending and I owned the bar, I had to open the bar. My father passed
and I had to open the bar, and I didn't feel like opening the bar because my dad had just died, but I had to because I own it and it has to be open. So I'm sitting there bartending around 4 o'clock when we open. Somebody comes in and he's like, "How are you doing? How's it going?" And I go, now generally, as we know, being in the industry, you got to leave your shit at the door.
Yeah.
As soon as you walk through that threshold. But I didn't do that. I go, things are shitty, man. I said, my dad died, and my friend Robert's father had pancreatic cancer, so I was kind of in the passenger seat to see his father pass. So I thought I was prepared for my father passing, and I didn't get along with him that well. But he's gone now, and I'm just a wreck. And there's so much more I wanted to talk to him about. And then this guest at the bar, we call them guests, we don't call them customer patrons. And the guest at the bar says, "Yeah, my father just died too. I know what you're talking about." So that opportunity for me to share some vulnerability kind of created a connection between me and the guest ended up being a regular, started coming back in. So now there's money involved.
Right. The transaction.
Yeah, this transactional. Yeah. So not to make that transactional take away from the authenticity of what happened, but it's not like a kumbaya place. I mean, it's a normal business, but we just use that. We add that EQ factor or element so that we can just get a little bit closer to our guests. And if everybody, I'm the CXO, the Chief Experience Officer for this hospitality group that I'm in. So if everybody from our staff and to our guests, if everybody's putting their best foot forward, then I think that we're operating. I think it's good for the industry. I think it's good for everybody.
I do too. I'm not being a front of the house person, not being a bartender, not being a mixologist. I had always viewed bartenders as, on a scale of 1 to 10 in two categories. They're either the psychologist and best friend, or they're the chemist. But it sounds like you need bartenders who are 10 out of 10 on both.
Yeah. When we can teach the scientist part, my palate, we can teach you how to taste, and we do teach. Teach. You asked earlier about training everybody. I didn't land that plane, but
how do you train their palate? They must have to taste a lot of bourbon.
You taste. We taste it, and then
so they can discern the difference.
Them about good alcohol and bad alcohol. Ethyl alcohol is a good one, but there's also propyl, butanol, and methyl, and they all have different carbons on them, so they all have a different sensation in your mouth and taste to them. Now, it's hard to find a taste, but it's easy to find the sensation. And the sensation is the pricking. Prick, 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 like a needle.
Yeah.
So the more pricking, and that's what you tasted when you had that red wax.
Right.
All that pricking. So that's bad. There's bad alcohol in there.
Got it.
So what we teach is how to discern that. How to find the bad stuff. Because that's the conjures. That's what gives you the headaches.
Yeah.
And if you have 144 bourbons on the wall, you got to sell all of them. So, and they're all different. So let's find out. There's all this stuff is business. All of it. There's no, it's all bottom line.
I'm sure the rules get broken pretty often.
They're starting in bourbon. They're starting to get broken with different, like Maker's 46. They use French oak, but they say that it's okay to use French oak because it was bourbon prior to being, but then like they had an American white oak. And they spent 4 years, 6 years, whatever. And then they spent some time in French oak. So it was bourbon already.
Right.
Depends. And they all watch each other.
Yeah.
So which is good.
I'll report on each other.
Yeah, they're not turning each other in.
Okay.
Because like behind the scenes, I've heard stories where everything's insured. And when they do the insurance audits for the distillery, they have to make sure, like they'll move barrels from one distillery. Like
ahead of the insurance.
To load it. But then Heaven Hill will get those, I'm not sure, but the distillery will get those barrels back. They just borrowed them to say, we've got 20,000, where maybe they had 18,000 just to, anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I was told.
Well, one thing that in the interest of having information to pass down to sous chefs and chefs de cuisine and restaurant managers and bar managers who want to open their own place. I remember, I feel like I know all this stuff. I know everything I need to know to open my own place. The next step is getting money. How do you, when you're at that stage, how do you possibly say no to somebody who is offering you money? So you must have had so many overtures over the years from people who wanted to invest in you to open another Crunkleton. What are the things that you look for in somebody that you are going to go into business partnership with?
Okay, so I think this is helpful. So when I was bartending, and I was successful, I was good, I was popular, and had regulars, a lot of regulars. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people said, people with money want to latch on. Mm-hmm. They're not dumb, and they want to latch on to something. They're like those little sucker fish on Shark.
More sure.
Yeah. And they want to latch on to stuff, and they want their money to work for them. So I was told, probably 100 times, crazy, but when you were ready to open your own bar, let me know. I want to invest. So I'm sitting there bartending for the boss, for the man or the woman, and I'm thinking, it's like, say I get rubbed the wrong way, I remember one time an old boss was yelling at me for fixing a fan, mm-hmm. but there was smoking in there, and that fan sucked the smoke out, and he didn't get it fixed, and so I paid an electrician to fix it, and he got mad at that. And so then I might think to myself, man, those 100 people said they'd give me money. I'm going to open my own bar. Well, out of those 100 people, when it was time for me to open my own bar, two people said they would invest. Mm-hmm. Everybody said the timing wasn't right. So I would say for the people out there that are trying to own their own place, and I'm no different than you. I'm no different than you. You're no different than me. I was lucky. I had someone that trusted me with God's plan was different. It worked out for me. Mm-hmm. I had someone that trusted me with money, and they did it. Now, when I opened Charlotte, I'm trying to phrase this so it's helpful. When I opened Charlotte, I had partners that had deep pockets. So Charlotte wasn't hard to get. We got the money like in 2 days, maybe. Mm-hmm. It was over $1 million, just about $2 million. Now Raleigh was different. Raleigh, it was right after COVID, and the budget was 4.2. That's what everything was. That included the construction alone was 2.7, and we had to fix that. Everything was expensive after COVID. Right. Everything, and we didn't have the money. And the Charlotte investors that I assumed would just piggyback over to Raleigh. Sure. Did it. Some of them did, like 3 or 4 of them did. We had 25 different investors. Mm-hmm. They didn't want to go on with Raleigh. So my role changed. I was actually asking people for money, investors, and it's humiliating. But I will tell you that, and for me, so insecure that I couldn't take the top down on a convertible at all. On Joe Bailey's convertible car. For me, it was even more humiliating because I felt like I was a used car salesman trying to sell myself to someone, and I didn't like doing that at all. I still don't like doing it. But I will tell you that people with money, if you find the right person, they want to help. They want to embrace things that are going on in their community. There's people out there that want, like Chapel Hill. They want Chapel Hill to be tremendous. Brandon, when your first restaurant opened here, you were a hit, but we didn't have anything. There was like 4 years where we didn't have anything. Mm-hmm. Things we're on decline, and Durham was getting everything. Yeah. And Durham was known as like a food town. Yeah. We used to be the foodie. That was wild for me to move back here in 2016. Everybody said, you got to go eat in Durham. I'm like, I know. I've never even been. I spent 3 years here. I never went to Durham once. I know. And people come into town, where should we eat? And I'll say, well, Durham's got all this, like, pizza place over there is really good. Toro, yeah. So hip. And Durham is beating Chapel Hill. Now, thanks to Brandon, who's expanding his empire. We're
Trending up, hopefully.
yeah. We're making it work. We're rotating.
Well, it's interesting. We're sitting right in the epicenter of the four places with beard, past beard nominees that you mentioned before. And Lantern is the only one that's
Still here.
still open at the moment.
Yeah. Crooks closed on my watch. That was tough.
Yeah.
Let me talk about that for a second.
Yeah, please.
So with that one, so the owner of Crooks called me. Crooks Corner is this. It's an institution. It's a Southern institution. Shrimp and grits. They say in the '80s that it started at Crooks Corner. Not shrimp and grits to plate, but like commercializing it, putting it on a level.
Yeah, that's where didn't Craig Claiborne come in there and cook it with Bill Neal, and it went in the New York Times. It wasn't that the route to.
And Claiborne went to Charleston. Yeah. And it was an Southern institution. Gene Hamer, the owner, for 42 years, he called me and asked me. He said, "I can't do this another year. Will you run it?" And I said, "Of course." My wife and I, we had our first date there. We had our wedding brunch there. We had our engagement party there. It was just
family
my
history there. Yeah,
it's my favorite. So I didn't even ask Megan. So yeah, Gene, we'll take it.
Mm-hmm.
So Gene says, "Well, the caveat is you got to buy the land because that land together, all that is big enough to build up. And Chapel Hill at the time was moving up. They're all building high rises." Mm-hmm. So I called a lawyer friend that's wealthy, and I said, "Do you know anyone that would be interested in doing this with me, partnering with me?" And he goes, I called him, I was in Atlanta. Remember, I called him at 10. He called me back at noon and said, "I got somebody." So we got someone, and I was super excited. And then I met with him, and I thought everything was wonderful. I thought that he was going to be a great partner. He liked me. He told me at one time that he was invested in me, not in the business. And, I was cool with that. But I think what ended up is he just wanted to buy the land,
mm-hmm.
and he wanted to build up. Since Crooks is closed now, I brought in another guy because I was nervous about this guy. Was super wealthy, and I was nervous that I'm not a P&L guy. I'm not a numbers guy. I can't look at a spreadsheet and tell you how profitable or not profitable a business is. I can now, but at that time I couldn't. And I was insecure about that. So this rich guy, I thought, well, he can see those things with his eyes closed. Sure. And I was insecure and nervous about it. So I asked this other guy to join in, this third partner to come in. And this wasn't a money decision. I just wanted to keep Crooks going for another 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
And they ended up, this was one of the first times I had a partnership. And I didn't know how to be a partner, but I thought, whatever I do, I'm going to be transparent. And so I tried to buy them out, and I told them, "I'm trying to buy you out." And COVID came, and it was a horrible time. This guy from Atlanta, he was going to invest, but it was a tough time to invest. And then there's another family, a Chapel Hill family, a local family that's pretty wealthy, and they were trying to invest. They were going to invest, but I guess I was a bad partner because they asked me in September of 2020. They asked me to get out. And they bought me out for $1. So that's what happened there. But I tell you the story I mentioned the story as a beware, like when you're choosing your investors.
Yeah.
And I'm saying beware for that guy. But I can't tell you any telltale signs or any. I think I would do it again.
Yeah,
because I was fooled.
Yeah,
and I think I would do it again. And I remember thinking, shit, where did I? Rehearsing each step, going back and going through each step, and thinking, where did I go wrong? Why was I clueless that all this guy wanted to do was own the land?
Well, this is exactly the type of thing that I want to capture in this podcast, because something similar happened to me. I had investors, and they hired my lawyer for me, and it was the same thing, and they were billionaires, and then they ended up billionaires plus my $37,500. So it's just
Were there any signs that you?
No, none whatsoever. Just I would do it again, and they were the house, and they were the house.
I remember this guy owned an island in the Bahamas, and at the time he was developing the harbor for it, the marina for it. And I thought, my dream. I'm not saying I'm a victim. I'm not saying that, because I should have known. But I mean, for us people to start businesses, we have an ego, we have a cockiness about us that enables us to walk out on that branch, and really push the limits. Mm-hmm. And then we believe that what we create, we're dreamers in a lot of ways, that what we create is the money the guests are going to want, and we're going to make money. Mm-hmm. We might not be as I know I'm not. We might not be as sound or as wise.
No,
the way big money thinks and the way they work.
No, there's wisdom, and there's cynicalness, and there's coldness, and there's all those things, and I don't have many of them.
Yeah. I'm a good bartender, yeah. So I hope now this did happen, and the sun still came up, and I'm sitting here, with everything's fine, and it's just unfortunate that Crooks closed on my watch.
Yeah,
and I let Gene Hamer.
Well, last question: someone comes into the Crunkleton for the first time, not a bourbon drinker. What is the one cocktail you're going to make to turn them into a bourbon drinker?
Okay.
One cocktail.
There's going to be two things I'm going to make. There's going to be two choices. One's going to be the Vieux Carré, which is a drinker. If the guys, I'm going to ask, are you a drinker or a sipper? Do you mind sipping on a drink? Like, y'all don't know what I look like, but I'm a big guy, and it's hard for me to sip on things. I drink, I gulp. So like a Sazerac, which is the other drink, it's not a good drink. It's my favorite cocktail, but it's not a good drink for me because I drink it too fast.
I'd pack a wallop, Sazerac.
Yeah, it packs a wallop. But the thing about the Sazerac, when it's made correctly, its brilliance is how it changes its complexity as it warms, as it becomes room temp. It switches from citrusy and quenchy and chilled to sweet and peppery and smooth like velvet, kind of like a cognac. Uh-huh. It starts off as like a sour and then finishes like a cognac.
Nice.
Now, don't take those of you the bartender out there and you think, that's not a brisket. It's crazy. That's not a sour. It's not a sour, but it does have the citrus elements and the vegetal elements at the beginning, because of the chartreuse or because of the absinthe. That gives it more complexity. And the reason why I choose the Sazerac is I could have gone with an old fashioned, but that's just bourbon or rye whiskey and sugar. It's just two-dimensional. The Sazerac will give you more complexity, and it'll help the drinker adjust to that complexity, and he'll build confidence along the way that, I can handle a rye or a bourbon. So I think the Sazerac's what I would do.
Nice.
I think.
Well, thanks so much. That makes me thirsty. That sounds delicious. Gary, love having you here today. Thanks so much.
Appreciate the opportunity, y'all. Good luck with opening your restaurants and bars. And if you have any questions, just call. I'm happy to help.
A big thank you to everyone out there in industry land for listening to today's episode with Gary Crunkleton. Please take a second, give us 5 stars on Apple, give us 5 stars on Spotify. You would be surprised how far your rating goes in helping a fledgling podcast like this one. Have a great day, y'all. Stay humble, stay hungry.